Oh, welcome back. What I wanted to look at real quick was a little bit of historical background before we get into the novel. And if you got through chapter one yesterday, great. I'll give you a time in the notes to this video as to where you can skip ahead once the intro is over. Um, so if you already read chapter one, you can just keep on making your way through this. I'm sure you guys are doing a great job. So here we got Lincoln in 1863, right? We're in year 2022. This is 1863. So we're 2 years into the Civil War. Okay. And then here is 1865, where the hand is. And it says John Wilkes Booth assassinates Lincoln, this guy here, this guy there, uh, and Congress establishes the Freedmen's Bureau, and the 13th Amendment is ratified, outlawing slavery. So the novel takes place right about next to this dot, right? During this year, right? They escaped during the Civil War, right? Gideon and his brother. And now they're trying to find the Freedmen's Bureau so that they can have their own land. And of course, this is based on the American Civil War. And it takes just a quick Google search to just get a reminder as to what it looked like, what was going on there. This is when the South, and you can think of this flag as like the flag that ISIS flies today, right? For terror and lack of freedom and control over others, fought the North. And by the way, they thought themselves a victim in this, even though they were victimizing and oppressing others. The South, whenever anybody flies a Confederate flag, it's a surefire symbol and surefire way for you to know they're historically illiterate and something's wrong with them. So let's go ahead and get into this book. We're going to get a little bit of background. Let's listen up. This is a short 1-minute intro.
So we're going to start to read 40 Acres and Maybe a Mule by Harriet Gillum Remnant. Okay, so this is a story that has to do with the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. Okay, so I'm going to read the back of it, so you have an idea of what we're going to be reading in the upcoming weeks. It says, like other ex-slaves, Pascal and his older brother Gideon have been promised 40 acres and maybe a mule. With a family of friends they have built along the way, they claim a place of their own. Green Gloryland is the most wonderful place on earth. Their own family farm with a healthy cotton crop and plenty to eat. But the notorious night riders have plans to take it away, threatening to tear the beautiful freedom that the two boys are enjoying for the first time in their young lives. Coming alive in plain, vibrant language is the story of the Reconstruction after the Civil War. This is 40 Acres and Maybe a Mule, Chapter 1. Pascal hadn't been able to fall asleep that night. Around the plantation, the air seemed full of whispered secrets. As he lay in the cabin doorway, he worried about how people treated him now that Mama was dead. After work that afternoon, he had walked past some men and said, "How y'all doing?" They had stopped talking. Didn't they know that, even though he worked in the big house, he wouldn't have to tell the master? In fact, he had secretly saved one of those men from a beating one day. Master had seen the slave with apples and he had picked to feed his children. As soon as Master had run out to the man, Pascal had used his big walking stick to break the window. When the master turned around to run to the big house, the other slave and Pascal had both escaped. That had been last fall. It was now spring, and Pascal wanted to know the secrets folks were buzzing about. He bet the news had something to do with the war between the states. The night air by his slave cabin door was springing blossoms sweet. But that April of 1865, it seemed full of mystery besides. He listened to the beating of 6 other slaves who lay with him on the crowded cabin dirt floor. From his pad, he glanced out to the open doorway. In the black South Carolina sky, a half moon mothered a million dancing stars. The night sky comforted Pascal's hurting feelings. Soon he felt some of the peace and joy that Ma always talked about. When a shadow hesitated by his doorway, Pascal sat up. "Who's that?" he asked in a whisper. Pascal, it's me, Gideon. Gideon? You're back? Be that really you, Gideon? Pascal could hardly believe it. His heart seemed squeezed to bursting with happiness. As he stood to hug his tall brother, tears flowed from his eyes. How wonderful to have his brother back. Gideon had run away from the plantation 2 years ago, and he hadn't gotten caught or killed in the war, as everyone thought. Yes, it be me all right. I came back for you and Mama. Gideon, Pascal trembled. Mama ain't here. Tall, wiry Gideon glanced down the row of 24 slave cabins. Where's Jerusalem City? Where's she be? I be leaving tonight. Don't want no trouble with Master. Mom's dead, Gideon. She kept asking for more food for the slaves. Folks saw the overseer shooting her down by the creek. Every time he thought about Mama getting shot, Pascal felt a fist ball up in his stomach. That white man just murdered his mama. How Pascal missed her. Since then, he had felt lost. It seemed like Mama just up and left him to the mercy of the world. Since her death, he hadn't had any family left among the slaves. With Mama and Papa dead, and Gideon gone, and 4 other brothers sold years ago, Pascal had been alone. Before she died, Mama had told him news, that she had given him something to look forward to, even if it was just a buttered biscuit left on the masters. Afterward, there was no one to care. But now Gideon was back. Gideon pulled Pascal to his side, hugged him, and rested his chin on his little brother's head. Pascal felt warm, close to his brother. No one had hugged him since Mama died. Gideon heaved a sigh and said, all this time I wanted to tell Mama. I wanted to tell her so bad. You know we'd be free now. Free? Pascal held his breath and wiped his eyes. Was this the news the other slaves were whispering about? Walls of Jericho? You sure now, Gideon? Sure, we free, said the voice from Pascal's cabin. But Master ain't letting none of us go, nor paying us to work, neither, another voice said. And then that goat just walk a little ways down the lane and come back. Some proud darkies keep walking and starve. I don't want to starve. Freedom? Asked another voice. There ain't no white folks that gonna let us live free. What's freedom mean for a colored folks in South Carolina? Gideon shouted. Freedom means everything. Pascal's heart began to pound faster. Freedom did mean everything. Hush you now, said a woman. Don't be getting us in trouble, Gideon. Master angry about this freedom talk, and he might come walking down this way tonight. But it ain't just talk, said Gideon. President Lincoln freed us slaves 2 years ago. And better still, now we're going to live on our own land. Land? Men from the other cabins scrambled to crowd around Gideon. They called, Hey, y'all, Gideon's back. He say we own land. Pascal nodded. With land, they really could be free. Dressing quickly, he stuffed all he owned, shirt, tin, cup, hairbrush, and 3 marbles into a potato sack. He tied the sack on his walking stick and limped to the door. They could own land to farm? Now that was something to look forward to. Pascal was so excited he almost tripped over his lame foot. Where had Gideon been all this time? How far had he traveled? Questions exploded in his mind, but he would wait to ask them. People were whispering and chuckling in a circle around Gideon. Already happening, Gideon said. As Pascal walked away, he heard, General Sherman already gave land to some of us who done followed him through the South. 40 acres and maybe a mule's just for the asking for colored people, like homesteading been for white people. Pascal heard slaves stirring and talking in one cabin he passed. Who's that down the road? A woman asked. Gideon's back, a man told her. Say they've given out 40 acres and maybe a mule to slaves. The woman snorted. Gideon's always been a sound off. Worried Jerusalem City, because he's never took kindly to sleeping. It would be a wonder he's alive. That woman be a sound off herself, another woman said, sassing the overseer. She's got herself shot dead. Yeah, but Mrs. gave us more food, didn't she? Heart drumming, Pascal ran stumbling along the path. From birth, his weak right leg was bent inward at the knee, and that leg was shorter. His right hand was weak, too. He reached the cabin he wanted at last. Ellie, he whispered through the door. That you, Pascal? What's been going on? She stepped out. My brother Gideon's here. Say we free and can own land now. I be going with him, my own brother. You want to come? He took a deep breath. Come on, Nellie, Pascal had protested. Nellie, ever since Master had bought her a year ago, Nellie had biscuit tan skin color and full moon eyes, honey brown. For 2 years they had been free, but the masters were still selling and buying slaves. Pascal wondered at that. Twist in a braid, Nellie said. You be like my brother. Pascal squeezed her hand. You're right. We be family, so come on, Nellie. It's true. Gideon say we've been free for 2 years. Free, she said. Master won't let none of us go. Gideon's here. We'll be running away with him. Nellie twisted another one of her braids. Your mama be dead, he said. What's to keep you? You got no family here. Besides, if you stay after I run away, Master gonna treat you something awful at the pig house. Once, a hidden Pascal had used his stick and tripping Master when he was drunk to keep him from kicking Nellie. Nellie had run, and Master never found out why he fell and got that cutlet. At first, Nellie stared at Pascal. Then in seconds, she dressed, tied clothes in a shot, and followed him. When Pascal returned, Gideon asked, You ready? Then he noticed Nellie. Pascal was about 12, but Nellie was only about 8 years old. Like Pascal, she was thin. She wore her hair in 6 long braids. Twisting one of them, she stared at Gideon. Since she was new at the plantation, she had never seen him before. Who's she be? Asked Gideon, as he looked her up and down. My friend Nellie. She be coming with us, Gideon. Gideon tapped his army boot. I hope she ain't gonna slow me down none, he said, glancing at Pascal. He shook his head. No more than you, lame leg. Pascal flinched. Gideon could be mean sometimes. Take 'em, Gideon, called a woman from the cabin. Master find new children to shoo the flies off his plate. They ain't worth nothing. Head down, Pascal. Felt as he had been slapped. Folks didn't think much of him or of Nellie, but things were going to change. They were going to find land and be owners. Then he would have a family and a family farm, too. He straightened his shoulders and raised his head. Gideon waved at the people standing around him in the moonlight. You people stay here in the slimy shame of slavery, you nobodies. I be free on my own way to my own land. Landowners or somebody, he laughed. Folks stepped back. Pascal stared at his brother. What he said might have stung some folks, but the words landowners are somebody sounded fine. Without another word, Gideon strode away in the dark, stooping under low tree branches, waving goodbye. Pascal and Nellie followed. She stopped for a small cooking pot and a tin cup, and then ran to catch up. Already, they had lost Gideon. Mosquitoes buzzed. Their bites stung Pascal's arms and legs as the two children scrambled uphill along the path. Ciedas and crickets sang everywhere. Pascal's heart fluttered as if he were a canary let out of the cage.
And then this begins the journey, the hero's journey.
Chapter 2.
Monomyth.
Nellie and Pascal pushed past trees and through scratchy bushes. Pascal, are we lost? Nellie asked. No, Nellie, he said. We'll be up to the road soon. When we get there, how are we going to know which way to go? I'd be scared, Pascal. Master's going to catch us. Pascal took her hand in his weak, twisted one. He was frightened, too, but he had to be brave. It's just that Gideon's impatient, Pascal said. He'd be coming back for us soon. Pascal thought back. Mama had tried to keep Gideon out of trouble. He sometimes struck a burr under a saddle to make a horse throw the overseer, but one day he was caught, and he had planned days when the young slaves all slowed down in the field. Sometimes he got blamed for that, too. He got whipped all the time, but he kept on until Master grew angry and found a buyer. When Gideon found out that he had been sold, he ran away. They hadn't heard from him, and Mama had wondered if he was still alive. Mama had 6 children, all boys. 4 of them sold away. Gideon, who ran, and Pascal, who was the youngest. He couldn't even remember his older brother's names, let alone where they were. Should he have followed Gideon? Yes, Pascal decided. Gideon needed Pascal, and he, Pascal, needed Gideon. They were family, Nellie too. and nothing was more important than family. Pascal sighed and said, "Just think, Nellie, we won't be running errands, fanning breezes, or shooing flies for master no more. We're free children now." He had to distract her. She nodded. "No more whippings at the whipping tree?" She squeezed his hands. "I hope." To make her feel better as they climbed, he practiced animal sounds. He imitated an owl. "What's that?" "Screech owl," she whispered. He chattered in a high voice. "What's that?" "Squirrel. You're a regular woodland all by yourself, Pascal." "And this?" He stopped, made a call, and grunted. "A deer." As she spoke, a fawn stepped out of the bushes, looked at them with large, innocent eyes, and scampered away. Pascal was thrilled. He really did make a good animal imitation. He asked, "You know what a moose wife is called?" "No." "Deer." They both giggled and walked on.
Mm.
When they climbed out of the bushes into a dirt road, Pascal stared up and down. Where was Gideon? Had he left them? Pascal felt sick in his stomach. Nellie pointed. "I've been hearing voices that way." As they ran, Pascal stayed close to the grassy ditch along the roadside and kept Nellie with him, both ready to hide in the ditch. He carried his stick in a strong hand. Around a bend, he saw Gideon talking to a colored soldier. That seemed safe. Pascal and Nellie ran up. "Where you been?" asked Gideon, laughing at them. Pascal didn't answer. He felt blood rush to his face, and his heart was pounding. Gideon was good-hearted, but he didn't always act that way. Mama said slavery had set a fire of anger deep inside Gideon. The soldier slapped Gideon's back. "Of course I seen you. Can't miss a tall, thin African like you. Didn't you follow General Sherman from Atlanta to Savannah?" "Yes, sir," said Gideon. "I dug latrines and graves. This crap I got be off a dead soldier. The boots, too." "The war's most over," said the soldier. "I finished duty and be on my way home. I hope you find a place to farm, son," Gideon said. "I hope you find your family well." He turned to Pascal and Nellie. "Come on. First we gotta escape master." He shook his head sadly. "Lordy, but I miss Mama. I was so looking forward to seeing Mama." Knapsack and folding shovel on his back, Gideon took them each by a hand. They had to run to keep up with his long leg strides. "Now, this was the way it be," he said. "At every town big enough, while you two hide in the woods, I'm going to ask if they got Freedmansboro. We want land in South Carolina." "Can't we ask with you?" Pascal said. "Freedmansboro? Freedman? What a beautiful word," he thought. For a few moments, Gideon didn't speak. "You take care of Nellie here," he said, "just in case some white men get mad. I'll do the finding out." Across Gideon, Pascal glanced at Nellie. She looked as frightened as he felt. One after another, Nellie was twisting her braids. Pascal knew he could be brave, but at the same time, he was terrified. Was it safe to go with Gideon? What kind of freedom was this? Pascal had always thought freedom would be like Joshua in the walls of Jericho in the Bible. Inside the walls of slavery, they were bought, sold, separated from family, whipped, kept hungry, and sometimes worked to death. But God would rise up Joshua and blow a horn, and colored people would all shout, and those walls would come tumbling down forever. That would be freedom. Gideon went on. "This place called Freedmansboro be where they given out land to men with families." Pascal frowned. "You ain't a man, and you ain't got a wife," he said. Gideon jerked Pascal's hand. "Ain't nobody saying I ain't a man when I sign up for my 40 acres. If I ain't old enough, I'm tall enough." Nellie gazed up at him and nodded. Pascal sighed. The way he figured, he himself was 12, or maybe 13 years old. He didn't know his springtime birth month exactly, and that meant Gideon was only about 16 or 17, but Gideon was tall. Maybe they could get that family farm after all. For the first week of escaping, they traveled the road by night and rested, hidden in the woods by day. Pascal's feet were soon bleeding from the stone from the roads. Leaning on his stick made his good hand sore, and he was sleepy day and night. Sometimes his eyes were closed, and he let Gideon drag him along. Nellie moaned in her sleep. She must have been tired as well, but she never admitted it. Gideon had money for bread and cabbage. They drank from creeks and ditches. The first time Gideon went into town and then returned to the woods, Pascal asked, "What'd they say? We can get our 40 acres here?" "No," said Gideon. "Man said he don't know about no freedom for slaves. He say go back and plant the master's fields, but his white face say it be a red-faced lie." Nellie shrugged. "I don't much like it round here nowadays. Too close to master." "Next place gonna be better," Pascal said, nodding. At the next stop, Pascal asked the same question. "No," his brother said. "They say we crazy to be thinking slaves could be smart enough to farm land. Say go back." At the next town, Nellie asked, "What they say, Gideon? Do they got our land?" "No, man. Want to know who told me?" I said General Sherman, and the man cussed and shook his fist. The next time Gideon returned, Pascal asked, but Gideon didn't answer. His cheek was swollen, and the skin under his eye grew purple. That evening, Nellie held a cool rag wet at the ditch on his face. In the second week, since they were farther from master, they walked in daylight. It was easier for Pascal to sleep at night and stay awake in the daytime. "Pascal," Nellie said one morning as they sat eating, "I used to dread growing up. Wasn't nothing pleasant to look forward to. Now I feel different," she sipped water. "After the overseer shot Mama dead, I felt dead too," said Pascal. "My own wonderful Mama, and I couldn't save her. It was hard to believe at first. I felt helpless, empty in my heart. After a while, I was sad. Then I began feeling mad at her for getting herself killed." He chewed a crust of bread. "I got sold right after my mama died giving birth. I hardly even saw her, and I don't know what happened to the baby." Nellie sighed. "Different old aunties raised me, but I wanted my own mama. I be so thin. I think first Master thought I was gonna die too, so he sold me. But now we be free children. What do you reckon owning land will be like?" Pascal stretched out on the ground and put his hand behind his head. "We'll wake up singing and go to bed laughing," he said. "Mama used to say joy was peace dancing and peace was joy resting. We be having both joy and peace." Gideon glanced over. "The green grasshopper's gonna call, 'Yes, boss,'" he said, "and the white daisies will bow down as the colored landowners strut past." Nellie giggled. "I still can't believe it." "Believe it," said Gideon, tearing off bread. "Slavery been an embarrassment to the white man. That's what them Union soldiers told me. Now things gonna be different. We got a right to be free. That's what I learned from soldiers. And I learned reading and writing. Big Irishman taught me for 2 years. He caught a shot in the chest." Gideon covered his face with both hands. "As he died," Gideon said in a muffled voice, "I rocked that white man in my arms like a baby. Me and some others dug his grave. He patted his shovel. Now, thanks to him, I be ready for freedom. We may have to go all the way to Georgia. Maybe they be having a freedman's borough there." Little by little, Pascal was learning what his brother had been doing those 2 years. Gideon stood and they started walking for the day. A colored man and woman walked up to them. "Please, can you spare some food? We ain't eaten for 2 days." Gideon, always generous, gave them bread. Farther along the road, a group of colored men called, "Y'all hear of any word they hiring for pay?" "No," said Gideon, "but I think they giving out land in Georgia." In spite of the disappointment, the farther he walked from the master's plantation, the freer Pascal felt. The trip was like a holiday. On the roads were hundreds of soldiers going home after battle, and hundreds of freed slaves looking for a better life. The lanes were almost crowded. Since Pascal had seldom left his master's plantation before, this was exciting. Pascal knew the freedom folks all wanted a better life, but he also knew it took courage to look for it after being slaves all their lives. White people had called slaves dumb and lazy, but most slaves knew better. Pascal worked at the big house and knew how many dumb things white people did, and slaves were always outsmarting the master about egg laying, tools breaking, and pig births. Not even the overseer knew what happened in the fields, yet even so, it could be scary for slaves to run away to freedom. Each small farm Pascal passed gave him hope that one day they would have a little family farm too. Now he had a family and a future. He promised himself to fight to keep them. As they walked, Pascal saw several lanes leading to a plantation, where curtains flapped sadly in the broken windows of the big house. At one mansion, a cannonball had torn off half the roof. White children peeked from an open room. Pascal looked at them and said to Nellie, "Southern white folks be funny angry at the North. President Lincoln's trying, but this freedom ain't gonna be that easy." A man walked up. "Please, y'all know my daughter, Miranda Smith? She cooked for the masters." The man held his hat across his chest. "She was sold 5 years ago." "No, sir," Pascal told him. Gideon offered him bread. "Gideon," said Pascal, "I've been looking at folks. You know we got 4 brothers that were sold to masters out there somewhere." Gideon grunted. "I found one. Talked to him just before he died. Came upon a man that looked like Mama, but he was light in skin color, you know. I asked him if he come from South Carolina and said he was sold from there as a boy. When he said his mama be Jerusalem City, I knew that he be our brother. When I told him I be Gideon, his baby brother, he smiled and died." "Really?" said Pascal. "What'd he be like?" "Tall and thin, light, name of Galilee. Looked like Mama's nose and smile." Gideon shook his head. "By the time I knew he'd be my brother, he was near dead. I buried him." "Tell me more," begged Pascal. "That all be all to tell." "What about the others? Do you remember their names?" "Not rightly. One brother dead." Pascal turned and stared at the man on the road. Was this man his lost brother? He cleared his throat. So much suffering. People were hungry at heart and hungry in body. He thought about the 12 slaves on their plantations who had starved last winter. That's why Mama had asked for more food. Pascal shivered.
And we'll stop there with this video today. What I want to do, though, is take just this page here, and we're going to work on our annotations. And your job is to make your way through the novel. So you're going to go back to the beginning of chapter 1, if that's where you left off. That was the 13-minute mark, by the way. And then go to chapter 2 and chapter 3 and so on. And we're annotating this novel along the way. So let's do this more. Tell me more. That be all to tell. What about the others? Do you remember their names? Not rightly. One brother dead, Pascal turned and stared at a man on the road.
Chapter 3.
Was it? Excuse me. Was this man his lost brother? Well, that seems to me to be a question he asked and a question I got. He cleared his throat. So much suffering. People were hungry. Well, here's a connection. The suffering is connected to hungry in spirit and hungry in body. I like that connection between the two different types of hungry. Hungry in heart, hungry in body. He thought about the 12 slaves on their plantation who starved last winter. That's why Mama had asked for more food. This being generous to others, always giving bread out, right? And that's what Mama was fighting for. That's sort of a hunger in the body. I like that. Pascal shivered. What connects to today's learning target? Well, are there any historical events talked about on this page? Besides the long event of slavery, I don't see a ton about real history necessarily on this page, right? The Lincoln stuff was a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to put this check mark here and notice at the bottom of the screen a check mark forms. That's what you want to see at the bottom of each of these slides as we go along. All right. And then you can go right on to chapter 3 and annotate there. I'm going to do this page as well, and we'll see if we can make sure we got a clear idea in our head what we're doing, which is annotating this whole novella. Chapter 3. By the end of the second week, men in 9 towns had told Gideon to go back to his master. No place seemed to have a freedmen's bureau, or if it did, no one would admit it. And a freedmen's bureau is something that is historically real. You can look it up right here, right on the Google. There's pictures of it. There's advertisements for it. There's a background in the government archives of it. They really went to give land to slaves, right? So, an act to establish a bureau for the relief of freedmen and refugees from slavery, right? From the Civil War. So the sun shone brightly as Pascal and Nellie walked along the road one day. Pascal thought those 9 towns had been too close to the master's plantation. Going farther seemed safer, and he still felt hopeful. Look, Nellie said, see if you can make your shadow dance. And she held her skirt out and swayed in the sun. The sun gave them skinny shadows, but sometimes their shadows grew fat on the roadside grass. Oh, I like that imagery, and I'm going to connect it. The fat shadows with the skinny shadows. Watching shadows made the walking fun, and although he was tired and fearful, at the same time Pascal's heart sang for joy. He felt that somewhere a freedman's bureau waited for them. They were on their way to the promised land. I've heard that in speeches from Dr. King. I may not. I've seen the promised land. Dr. King is quoted as saying, "I may not get there with you." So soon Gideon pointed to a wooded hillside for that evening rest. We've been walking 2 weeks and we near Georgia now. A man at that last store said it'd be only a few miles more. Maybe South Carolina ain't got no Freedmen's Bureau yet. Georgia got them, I hope. And I'm wondering that too. Does Georgia have this Freedmen's Bureau that they're looking for? Notice the check mark is checked down there now, right? That be where General Sherman had been giving out land. I can hardly wait to work my own land, grow my own crops. 40 acres and maybe a mule. Oh, that's the title of the story, so I'm going to move my light bulb there. All right, that's what y'all are doing this whole time. For those of you that don't have it, you want to partner up with someone who does have a working computer and read along with them. It's okay to read out loud if you like. Of course, that's at the substitute's discretion. All right, good luck. Go get them. Sorry, I can't be there right now, guys.